He's a judge that will go a long way, too. And it's also important for water because forest land is a big value for water quality, too. So let's not forget about that. So as we look at our resources, just keep these thoughts going through cycling through your mind. And I know a lot of the information, the GIS information that's provided to you on that on the disk is going to have the streams. I already talked a little bit about EPA's website for water quality, so we want to learn a little bit about that. What can we do to help benefit if there is an impairment on that stream? Ponds, you want to know what the water quality, you want to know what that purpose is. Is it feeding livestock? How can I minimize the impacts that is going to have on that? Wetlands, where are the wetlands? You know, you don't want to be farming in a wetland, you know? So that's going to bring your yields down. It's going to impact your calendar, planting calendar. It's going to just stay away from the wetlands. Where's my wells? What are your water sources? You know, do I need to irrigate out of those ponds or a stream for my crops? How much can I irrigate from that? Where's my wells around the property? You know, is it a shallow dug well, deep well? You need to know this stuff. Vernal pools, you know, that's an important part of you know, the forest. And you know, the amphibians that come out of, that's not my strong point here, but I'll try to wing it, but and the amphibians that come out of it. So we want to make sure that we're not going to have a negative impact on that.
We don't have as strong legislation as Massachusetts does in terms of, you know, not being able to use the vernal pools. They protect theirs with a lot of legislation, but still, Rhode Island's very close, I think, to categorizing those, and then eventually they'll be restricting them.
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
The only comment on that, if I don't know if you can hear me on the thing here, but the only comment on vernal pools, Otter, is that in forestry, make a long story longer, or short story long. Forestry has an exemption under the Clean Water Act for its activities in and around wetlands if you follow certain BMPs. And they have in the BMPs for water quality protection.
BMP, Best Management Practice.
An acronym.
Thank you. Anyway, so in the best management practices for water quality protection in forestry, they have guidelines for protection of vernal pools.
For plants, all right, how healthy are your plants? Are you growing your crops in the best, most healthy soil areas? Healthy soils, what is a healthy soil? Well, if you go there and you don't find any worms, that's a good indication. That's not a healthy soil. So now what can you do to make that soil a little bit more healthier? What can you incorporate? Cover crops is a great example of a way to help with an unhealthy soil. Is there soil erosion going on there? Pasture, you want diversity. You want different forage crops available for the animals. You want low compaction because you want the roots to grow, and you want no erosion. You know, the erosion is going to take away the organic matter. Organic matter is what makes the nutrients recycle, and it's probably one of the most important parts of the soil. Forest type. Okay. And then existing buffers and water bodies for water quality. We can't stress this enough. Okay. Windbreaks, hedgerows. You brought up windbreaks and hedgerows. These are BMPs, people. You know, these are important things on a farm that need to be taken a look at, and make sure you're doing the best that you can to either improve your water quality or keep your water quality clean. Okay. Animals. If you're going to have livestock on that farm, you got to take a look at how much pasture you have available. Weigh that out with the number of animals that you're thinking of having. And I would take a look at your pasture first before you decide on the number of animals, not the other way around. Okay. What are the water sources for those animals going to be? Like I said, if it's going to be a stream or a pond, don't give them access to the whole stream or pond. Limit the access. Okay. Hopefully, we'd like to get a well in there because you want to move them away from those kind of water sources. What's their shelter going to be? Are they going to be on the pasture the whole year? So you want to have some trees available from the weather conditions, or are they going to be brought into the barn? Okay.
Shelter from the sun.
Yep. you want to talk about wildlife a little bit?
Again, when we're thinking about whole farm planning and we talk about wildlife, you know, you could have, let's say in that 70-acre woodland, you could have some ideas that you wanted to create or improve habitat for certain species of wildlife within that woodland. But there are also certain species of the wildlife that love to occupy the edges between the woodlands and the farm fields. And there may be opportunities there to plant certain pollinator crops to benefit native honeybees and butterflies and pollinators like that. But there also may be other wildlife species that just like that edge habitat, certain neotropical songbirds, things like that, that you might want to incorporate into your farm planning. So in that case, you need to look at those types of potential habitats, think about the species type or type of wildlife that you're thinking about managing as it relates to that habitat. And some of the issues that you have to think about for wildlife, you need to be able to provide food for them, water, shelter, and edge through the natural habitats. Not necessarily going out and planting food for the wildlife, but they have to be able to find those four constituents. And then pollinator habitat, if it's something you're thinking about, if there's going to be pesticide use on the farm for pest control, you need to think about the proximity of that pollinator habitat to the pesticide use, or implement some best management practices that reduces drift of that pesticide into your pollinator habitat. Windrows, hedgerows, things like that.
There are, in terms of funding for your farm, programs, funded by independent organizations like the New England Cottontail Rabbit organization pays farmers to maintain New England Cottontail habitat.
And we're one of those sources. And our NRCS provides not only technical assistance, but also financial assistance. So as you're a farmer, you got to think of these things. How am I going to pay for all these BMPs, right?
You don't want the
There's help out there.
to eat your sheep.
Huh?
And you don't want the coyotes to eat your sheep.
That's right. So now that you've done your assessment, now you got to start thinking, well, now where am I going to locate my fields? All right, we've talked about, you know, the hydric soils, the wetlands, the streams and buffers and stuff. So now we want to determine where our fields are going to be located. Prime and important soils is a great choice to put your crops on the field so that you can expect the yields out of that. The appropriate setbacks. Keep your fields away from the water bodies, from the ponds, from the streams. You want to make sure that you limit the amount of erosion that's going on there, because you don't want the sediment to end up in your stream. And again, we talked about this a couple times already, the wet areas, scheduling plantings and stuff. If you don't have a plan that's adaptable to weather, then it's going to fail. So make sure your plan, whatever you plan, is an adaptable and you're willing to change that. Pastures, a lot of the same conditions apply, the appropriate setbacks, water sources, and pasture. Keep them off the wet pastures, because wet pastures and animals will cause compaction. Compaction over time will lead to a decrease in yields for those pastures, so that's less food available for your livestock. Less food available for your livestock means that you need to go out there and pay for more forage or feed for your livestock. So very, very, very important.
So you're going to move from agronomic portion of farming into the forestry side of it. So Eric is talking about, where do you locate your farm fields? Well, the same thing when you're looking at forest habitats within that. You need to basically decide what type of forest habitats you have, and you have to delineate those habitats into what we call forest stands. So in farming, it's a field. In forestry, it's a stand of trees. You probably heard this in the initial, maybe if you attended the forestry section. But a stand of trees in the forest is some group of trees that has some discernible difference from the group of trees next to it. It might be forest type, it might be age, it might be previous management history, it might be goals and objectives, but it's different from the trees around it. And in forestry, when we do these assessments, we then delineate. The first thing we do is identify those forest stands, or those crop field locations in the forest. And then we go out and collect data to give us an idea of how productive those stands are for our particular use. So we'd be looking at things like identifying tree species, age, stocking, which is how crowded the stand is, growth rates, soils, again, are there any obvious insect and disease problems? If you're interested in wildlife, how many snags are there, den trees, what type of habitat is sort of exemplified on the forest floor, how has the stand been managed in the past? And ultimately, we delineate those stands and into sort of unique cover types. And I don't know if there's information on the GIS information on that, but I think we've passed that type of information out before, Paul, haven't we? I think. And again, be mindful of wet areas. We keep coming back to that. No. No. They haven't been done yet.
This is all new. I mean, we are really soliciting your help because it is new.
So the students are going to do the stand delineation?
They can do the stand
They can?
delineation, and we're very helpful and thankful if they do.
But they don't have to, they just need to look and say, this is softwood. We're not gonna cut that for firewood. That's pine. Nobody wants to burn pine in their wood stove. This is oak. This will make fabulous firewood. So we'll use the pine for lumber, we'll use the oak for firewood. Maybe we've got nut stand, we've got some walnuts, we can keep those walnuts. That's another idea. We might have sugar maples, we could tap them for maple syrup. Are you with me? I'm not saying you have to delineate it, but you could take a look at an aerial photograph and tell me what's pine and what's oak. How do you do that? It's green if it's pine, it's not if it's oak, because they take the photographs in winter time.
Don't give away all our secrets. So ultimately, what we're talking about is we're talking about this
Very roughly, big picture.
big picture. Yeah, big picture.
Okay, you're scaring me.
Paint with a 4-inch brush.
But to identify false trees, the small pictures, you might as well go out and practice it at Snake Dam.
Right.
The trick is there, usually we use aerial photographs before we go out. We look at obvious differences in tree types, so you can delineate from an aerial photograph, this is all conifer, this isn't conifer. And from the new aerial photographs, you can delineate wetlands. So, okay, right from the aerial photograph. So, anyway, so what we've been talking about is taking a number of different we call them resource assessments, and pooling these all together into an integrated system of conservation. We call that a plan. So far you've gone through a couple different steps. First step is you need to know what the goals and objectives are of the landowner you're working with. And the goals and objectives have been somewhat laid out in the special problem description. You then need to go out into the forest and assess the condition of the resources that are there. And are the resources that are there suitable for the goal to meet the goals and objectives of the landowner? So we've gone and done that so far. Now we're going to come back and integrate this into some sort of plan, but after we've assessed those resources, we need to go back and compare them with what our goals and objectives were to see if we in fact can do what we thought we wanted to do, or the landowner wanted to do, and adjust them if we can't. So that's what we're talking about is, again, sort of integrating all this into a system, a sustainable system. You know, the farm in this case needs to generate enough revenue to maintain it over the long term. All of a sudden I'm looking at goals here. Sustainable, generate income, use energy efficiently, improve soil and water and water quality, air quality, all those times, reduce soil erosion. I'm beginning to look at what some of the goals of that landowner may look like. So.